Claude, Vicky, massive apologies for that technical glitch. I don't know what's happened there, but we are here now. So, yes, really glad to have some of your time. And I guess what I was hoping to draw on is some of your immense insight into PE. I know you both share a massive passion for primary PE and do quite a lot of work in your respective countries, but also broader across Europe. So, Claude, if I can start with you, it'd be really nice to hear what PE looked like pre-pandemic in Luxembourg.
Yeah, talking about primary PE here in Luxembourg, I think that like in many European countries, we have the issue, I would not say a problem, but the issue that in primary, not all the teachers teaching PE consider the subject as a priority for different reasons. Basically because we have generalist teachers teaching all the subjects, and some of them are very motivated also to provide quality PE, but that's not true for all of them, because other subjects have higher importance, and then the way how you dedicate as a teacher to the delivery of the subject is dependent on this. We have also in exceptions some schools where we have either qualified generalist teachers teaching only physical education, or maybe some teachers having not really qualification but replacing teachers to teaching physical education. So these would then be like specialist teachers, but not with a specialist qualification. What we have here is they are motivated.
Specialist coaches, you mean?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, not only, but at least those teachers are highly motivated to teach the subject because they choose to teach only physical education. But sometimes, or mostly, they lack of a real qualification. So that's something that we have to deal with. So it's a quite diverse problem that we face with a mix of profiles of teachers teaching the subjects, and then also with the motivation they have or not have. And what we want to have in the end is teachers that take the time to prepare high quality physical education provision, and that's something that we work on. Both in initial education, we are teaching, training most of the future primary teachers here in Luxembourg, and we have quite a lot of time for physical education in our program, completely different to UK, for example.
Brilliant.
And we try to use this in the best possible way. It could be more, of course, but at least we are able to reach them in order to convince them that it's an important subject, physical education. And I think we reached this.
So can I just check I'm hearing that right? So even for your primary generalists, they get quite a significant amount of time helping prepare them to deliver high quality PE?
Yes, I would say in comparison to other European countries, yes. So it's at the moment, it's, I have to calculate this very quickly. It's 13 ECTS, which is quite significant in comparison to other comparable study programs.
Yeah. And to bring you in, Vicky, this is something we've debated a lot. And so maybe it's helpful if you compare and contrast that story to what the picture looks like here for us.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so many parallels to what Claude is saying in Luxembourg that I think we can draw some empathy with in terms of the English context pre-pandemic. Lots of diversity in our workforce. We are still technically a model of generalist teachers in primary. However, probably what's exacerbated that, which is different to Luxembourg, is the high level of funding we have coming from government since post-Olympics through PE Sport Premium, which has meant that the nature of our workforce has changed quite considerably and quite rapidly in the last sort of 7 years. So where we had a profile of having people other than teachers delivering PE, we now see that's really swung quite considerably over the last few years. And I think what that's done for us is, while we've still got a traditional model of PE still happening in primary education, one we can probably see and resonate to what 20, 30 years ago is still taking place. We've narrowed a little bit to less progressive forms and probably more sport-based forms because of who is now delivering more. And I think pre-pandemic, we were a very sport, competition, health focused, impeded by things like obesity challenges as well that's been coming from government and society. And just before the pandemic, I was starting to see some changes that are moving towards mental health focus. And that was going to be interesting to see how that played out for PE as to who would then be the best person in front of those young people teaching. Would it now be the generalist class teacher again? And I suppose we'll have to wait and see where that goes. But absolutely. And into ITE, Claude, as you've mentioned in your pre-service training, we're still very minimal hours, maybe 5 to 20 hours dedicated to primary across generalist programs. But we are seeing a slightly increase in numbers in specialist trained teachers being taken away from the generalist time. So to have a specialist teacher, fewer numbers still, their PE priority is being made over the generalist teachers when they're in school. So yeah, lots of parallels there.
And if we move on beyond Pete and teacher ed, well, certainly initial teacher training for a minute, I know you've both got a real wealth of experience in coming into contact with each other. I just really enjoyed watching, Claude, you speaking about healthy and physically active schools as part of the MOVE Congress. And we clearly share a lot of passion in that space. And I'm just wondering what you've seen and heard about what we like to see from the PE curriculum in schools. First, what do you think we should do more of?
What I would like to see, and what I think we don't have enough, is that teachers work with the curriculum. I think that in most countries we have very good curriculums where you try to reach the diversity of the proposal in arts. But when it comes to practical implementation, it being used to things like the example, teachers use play a lot, which is fine, but it's not only play. So this diversity is very important. From the start, from a formal ideology, from a content point of view, learning activities, but also from the other one. Like in German, you have a principle which is called the perspective. So when it comes to questioning is also why be active, it might be reasons. It can be just to play fun, it can be to do something else, it can be it can be.
Now I don't know.
I think always know will. Let's come back in.
I guess that German word basically is massive. Fun, health, basic education, all that.
Yeah, look, I think if I what I would say now, multi-perspectives, a multi-perspective angle on physical education outcomes that they're seeing in more advanced countries. So I think we can really that there's a multi model that's looking at the health as well as the effect. I know that's something that people speak quite a lot, and other European countries try to promote. Actually, developing this, I write quite a bit in the policy about people with that carries on more character. Might use friends in Mexican. I don't know that.
Before we go, because you're quite into and from your perspective that you look at the.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is such a topic that's sort of moved in those dimensions what physical education is and should be. But for me, what I'd like to see us move to in primary education is a focus back on the body. You know, the body and how it's educated is much more than what skill it can do and how it can perform, or even how healthy it is. The body has a much broader concept than that, and I quite like that reference that was making there to this multi-sensitive. And I think when we talk about the body more generally, I think teachers get that. Teachers, especially in primary education, I would imagine, because of the care of child and the different things and activities and experience, and that allows the body to do that. It goes much more beyond that. And I just question whose job is it? If it's not physical education, whose job is it about the body physically? It's not ours. And if it is ours, does that mean we have to expand our understanding of what is physically educated? And at the moment, my fear is we're narrowing that rather than expanding. So for me, I'd like to welcome more discussion about what is the educating body, rather than going down a more narrowed view because we're grappling with what we should be and should do. I don't know if that answers your question at all. It's hard to there's so long there's I always see the more confident we can get, more social we can act, more we become better educated or see the person those and the outcomes are very there. And I don't coincidence, the more you narrow focus on what it does, the more you have insight around and engagement, social engagement and things like that started to take place. So yeah, I think it's a big question. I don't necessarily have the answer about still that fully, but I'd like to see a less narrow and more broadening a big discussion about that perhaps.
Okay, can you hear us okay?
Yeah. Sorry, I lost internet connection. I have such a Wi-Fi.
And that's not just me.
Yeah.
It's time to get out in the sunshine and get out of physical activity. But let's just touch a little bit on whether, you know, people are going to be tuning in next week, and probably for us in England, middle lockdown and worry about reopening and having. But in a world of lockdown, what physical education can happen? Really? What might be happening at the moment? Do you think? I'll go to you first, Vicky.
There's an opportunity to get back to a sense of play, curiosity, just simple things, not having to overcomplicate movement in any way, and especially while we've quite strict restrictions in England and the UK, but there's still been an opportunity to explore our local environments, and what I've been really pleased to see when I've been out daily walk or daily activity is the amount of family time and household time young people are having, much more before. That I don't know if traditional physical education would have captured that so much. And it's got the profession really thinking quite creatively about what PE can happen in terms of what can the body now do while we're potentially restricted. And I think we see that because we're in our households and our homes and our local communities that we're restricted somehow. But having seen what I've seen out there, not necessarily to be the case. I've seen children playing, running, engaging with family, picking the scooters out, you know, chasing the dog or whatever. And it's been a wonderful thing to see that I haven't seen very much recently prior to lockdown in some respects.
Always the optimist. What about you, Claude?
That was, yeah, try maybe a bit too idyllic there, but yeah.
Claude, in Luxembourg, what's PE currently looking like for students?
That's a very sad question or answer that I have, because schools started and will restart, as I mentioned before. So secondary schools last week, primary schools next week, and PE has been cancelled until the end of the school year, which is dramatic from my point of view. I guess you agree. Absolutely. So there is no physical education until the end of the school year. And now confinement in Luxembourg, the lockdown started on the 13th of March. And then schools started to work remotely, basically in the traditional important subjects, which is mathematics and language education. And since that moment, teachers teaching PE were not in touch anymore with their students. So what I observed, I was outside a lot during all this period, being physically active myself. I met many people, more than in usual times, outside, cycling, running, walking, also families with their kids, which is nice. But I'm afraid that that's not true for all the children. Many are at home since the mid of March. Now, with some regulations in deconfinement, it's easier to go outside again. But there will be, I'm afraid, a significant number of children and adolescents that without physical education will not have been active for half a year when the next school year restarts. And that's dramatic. I think that this decision from the Minister of Education, which was taken without consulting any experts, like from researchers or teachers teaching PE, was taken. This decision was taken very early when they presented the first steps for reopening schools, and that's really a dramatic situation.
Absolutely, health and safety is number one, but you, like us, would hope that they could find a way, and as Vicky's already alluded to, we have quite a creative profession amongst us, find ways to do what we can within the guidelines.
There will always be ways, and being a member of the National PE Teacher Association, we discussed it, and teachers were would have been ready to find solutions. And there are other European countries where we have other models. So Austria is the same than Luxembourg. They also canceled everything. But if you have countries like Belgium or France that have that were quite struck hard by the pandemic, they will restart physical education lessons, but of course under the regulations, the sanitary regulations that have been drawn by the government. But teachers and schools are asked to find ways how to teach physical education lessons. The most interesting example is Switzerland, I think, that I know about at the moment. There, the communication was like, physical education will continue, will restart again, like all the other subjects. They have 3 lessons a week, and it's up to the teachers and the schools to find ways how to implement it. And there you have the cantons in Switzerland that have they are in charge for the educational system in their cantons, and they agreed even on recommendations where they adapt the regulations, the national regulations, the general ones, to physical education. So they have in Switzerland, they have the rule of 2 meters of social distancing, but they don't apply it in physical education. They say, we cancel this regulation for PE lessons, but of course there should be no contact.
Yeah.
And in that case, you find many ways to implement almost normal physical education lessons. You cannot do everything, but still. So I think that these examples from Belgium, France, and Switzerland, they clearly show that if there is the political will and if you trust the experts, which are in the end the teachers, with support from maybe other experts from universities, etc., you will certainly find solutions. And this shows also how important physical education is in the different countries. And we in Luxembourg, we learned now that we have no importance at all.
And as you say, it's that recognizing that the potential benefits outweigh the possible risk. And that's what you admire in some of these other countries. I had a chat with, I'm sure you'll know him, Mikael Kvanderstad in Sweden. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he was talking again very positively about what's going on in Sweden right now. And they have a real belief in the outdoor ed aspect. I can't remember what he calls it, but like you were saying, Vicky, that engagement with the environment and outside and really capitalizing on that at this time.
I mean, yeah, that idyllic picture I posted is as Claude's highlighted is not isn't the reality for all children. And I think we've got extreme. We've probably got a polarized situation at the moment. PE in England has been decided as at the moment until schools become statutory running again. The curriculum is kind of not functioning as a curriculum. And what's been replaced, which has been really disheartening, and as Claude says, but there's been very little engagement with the academic or the teacher education or the profession itself about how that should look. And we've seen physical education being replaced by home fitness and home workouts, with no due diligence really to the age of the child, the safety, the context, which is fine. It might keep children more active by doing it, but it's not physical education, and it's quite misleading to label it so. And we see in other countries outside of Europe, like New Zealand, for example, quite early, I think led the way on this. They set their guidelines quite early around physical education in social distancing terms, and they called out their government on calling fitness at home phys ed, and they had that kind of language removed within weeks of the pandemic. So I think some countries have been quite brave and fighting for their profession, and then what's been, I suppose, a little bit slow to happen here is that same response, because I guess the view has been something is better than nothing, and I'm not sure I agree something is better than nothing, and where that might lead us. to what PE then looks like after the pandemic. So, yeah.
From what Claude has been, I think, alluding to is, I think he perhaps believes something would be better than nothing, in that it feels like a nothing right now in Luxembourg. Is that putting words into your mouth, Claude, or is
something would be better, but it cannot be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So what partly happened during the lockdown with videos that are presented, activities that are presented, I think that this is something that is really reducing what we are talking about to something that it's not physical education anymore. It's more like fitness training or whatever. There were teachers, secondary school physical education teachers in Luxembourg that did this as well in order to stay in touch with their students, to get them active. Let's say for this period, it was kind of a, let's say, it was okay in order to stay in touch with the students and to get them active in some way. But as it was presented, like it's just videos and you can do what you see in the videos at home, you can practice that. That's not physical education, that's clear. And so therefore it should be the aim to come back as soon as possible to PE lessons in the school setting, either inside or outside, under the regulations that we have, of course, that we have to follow, but still there will be ways to implement something that is physical education. I'm sure about this.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say then that we're going to see a real widening of that disadvantage gap, whether that be at a literacy or a physical literacy or even a well-being level as a consequence of the current climate. And I guess also, as you say, just such different approaches in different countries and in different districts, potentially in some countries. And, you know, we have a very strong multi-academy trust set up here in England, particularly in secondary schools. So how they choose to play this out will be really interesting. Just by means of a bit of a wrap up, here's one for you. Again, always the optimist. What do you hope for a future of PE? Is there any way that this moment of calm and self-reflection might enable us to get to a better future place for PE? So any thoughts? What do you hope for PE in the future?
Who would you like to go first? Go on, Claude.
Me personally, I have no specific new hopes than prior to the pandemic. I think that also already before there were, let's say, I would have liked to physical education to become a higher quality PE, focusing, as I described before, what would be the PE that I want to see. We didn't have that, and we are on the way for that maybe, and so that's what I'm hoping for also now. I'm not sure whether this period will have related to the pandemic will have a strong impact on PE as a subject. Maybe like now here in Luxembourg, the PE teachers receive now the feedback that the Minister of Education thinks that the subject has no value. That's clear. So this will maybe help them to re-question the position of the subject again a little bit more in deep, and to come back and try to advocate again more for physical education as a subject. But this is more, this is a different level, I think. When it comes to what is happening in the gym, in PE lessons, then I think then that's, I have the same hopes than before, and
But maybe some coming together, some uniting of the profession to really have a voice that counts.
Yeah, that might happen. Hopefully this happens in countries like Luxembourg. When you have other countries where PE was considered as the other subjects and can start with the other subjects together, there you have a different situation. There, the challenge is to find solutions, creative solutions in order to implement PE lessons. maybe this can have also a positive impact. I don't know.
What about you, Vicky? Same old hopes? Or
Yeah,
some old
I think again, a lot of my hopes are here, no different than the future they were before the pandemic. But as an outcome of the pandemic, what I hope we do is use this experience, opportunity, what we've learned, what we've seen, to start to bring together the diverse workforce we were talking about earlier, to start to bring together all those vested interests, all those stakeholders, all those people who have had piecemeal roles in children's health, physical activity, physical education. And actually this now encourages us to discuss clearly about where we all sit within this. I would hope that we retain the importance for physical activity, but that becomes a whole school matter much more, and that we really drill home the importance of movement generally across the whole school and being active in our communities that is led by school. But that's not just PE teachers' role. I think that needs to come from leadership and all the way through and to playtime supervisors and parents. I hope it starts to give confidence to teachers from a physical education point of view that their knowledge of the child will be even more needed now when those young people come back. The relationship building, the trust building with children, child to child, child to adult, that PE is going to demand, and bringing an external person in might not be the greatest thing for that now. So I think there's an opportunity there for teachers to reinstate their role. And I think there is a need to bring community back together, which school sport will do, and to look at how we then use those coaches that we've developed a huge workforce for, and find a really important need for them linking to schools to build communities again, to build community activity and trust in communities in time. So yeah, my wish is that we use this opportunity to get people talking and we recognise everyone's role, but really now start to clearly define what those are.
Brilliant. That's a lovely one to finish on, and let's keep talking in that case.